Hi, my name's Benedict. Somebody asked me to have a look at this macro multi-model synthesizer and give my opinion, and it's interesting. Whilst I was up getting it, I found this WBL 4014 multi-trigger. My first thought was like, WTF? Some of their first things, the omio things, were just like, what is that? But this is kind of cool. It has its charms, and I think the pair actually probably make a nice combo. Now, if you notice background noises, I've got every door and window open because it's summer here and it's stupid hot. So why should I be uncomfortable to give you something for free? If you do like this, hit subscribe, hit like, make some positive comments. Go buy one of my records off Bandcamp. It's $5. If you hate it, then give it to your mum or your accountant, or throw it in the creek. Who cares? Just a little bit of value back is always very nice. So the macro multi-model synthesizer is a little bit of a strange thing. It comes out of the Eurorack environment, which is all about beeps and bloops and what have you, and not so much about how to make an elongated musical sound. It's not to say you can't, but just mostly people focus on bleep bloop and kind of stuff. Not so much my thing. But there are times where that's rather cool. But there are some things about it that are weird, things about it that are frustrating, and things about it that probably don't come out quite as well as one might hope. Because while Reason is in many ways a very modular environment, it's not modular on the same level as Eurorack or, God forbid, the grid inside Bitwig. Not that I've spent any time there, but nonetheless, it's not a bad thing to have, and it's very well priced for the fact that it's free, so you really can't go wrong. Pairing it up here with the Multitrigger. Multitrigger's kind of weird. I thought, oh, well, this is going to make a sequence, and then I press a note, and that doesn't seem right. Press a second note. Now it's triggering the second one. Press a third note. So it's actually kind of clever. So what happens is the one on the bottom gets triggered when you play your first key. The next one up gets triggered when you play your second key. So you can set patterns of triggeration and then bring in each successive layer of triggerance with another key. Therefore, if you're wanting that to be a chord, play a chord. If you're wanting them to trigger in a particular order, play the keys in that particular order. After that, it's kind of cool, and it fits in with that whole sort of bleepy bloopy kind of a thing. I have not read a manual because I didn't notice one. Yeah, I absolutely didn't notice, so I couldn't find a manual for the macro, which I think is a bit... I know it's free, but guys, there's extra stuff here. I can't say I've fully understood it. Velocity modifier on here gives you the ability to create a shape and then to change velocity via an LFO. So here we're assigning that to generator B's shaping. Now, before we go much further, actually, I need to bring in this fella, just so you know it's there. Because it's very hard to listen to stuff in headphones with no sense of space in there. So, just a free delay to make life easier. So already we've got movement. They've then got, and again, I haven't been able to read this, but the ability to slop, so that seems to be randomizing timing. To desync or to swim. Sink or swim, haha, funny. But there are ways to loosen up what's being played, and I gotta say, I quite like that, because it does make a difference. Let's say we've got nice kind of manly industrial sort of thing. Sounds very mechanical, which we hope for. But one of the great things is that when it's a little bit loose, it actually manages to sound more mechanical than when it's very rigid. In part because when something's super rigid, our brain finds the pattern and then starts to go, yeah, I don't really need to pay so much attention to that, I'm looking for what's different. Whereas if that pattern's always just that tiny little bit different, we're constantly being pulled back to see, hear it, what have you. So it pairs very nicely with this doohickey. Let's move through some of the engines. They are funny engines in the sense that they are not a full synthesizer. They just provide you a set of functions from which you can go and do other things. Wave shaping oscillator. So it takes a form and then allows you to fold it. 2 operator FM, which I can't say I understand how it works. I know how FM works, but it's not very well annotated on screen. You really have no idea where you're at, but you sure can get some pretty cool sounds out of it, even though quite limited. The DX style FM is all about lots and lots of detail. This makes it hard to have that detail, but at the same time gives you some of that feel in a kind of a cool way. Granular formant oscillator. Sounds good. And I think a lot of its charm's going to be just in this kind of strange moving around thing. There are a pile of wavetables in here from where I can gather. So you've got your banks of wavetable. Quite what happens here, they seem to be... Oh, okay, so they may be smooth, ABCD smooth, and ABCD not smooth. Again, with the lack of a manual, you've got to kind of just try and work this stuff out as you go. Chords, plays back. I don't get it myself, but there's also speech synthesis. Again, without some kind of manual to tell you how does this work, it is disappointing, but you can get interesting sounds. Sometimes it almost seems like it's going to try and speak to you, but maybe those words are pre-built, or I don't know. But occasionally you get interesting results. This sounds like what you can do with particularly Parsec, but to some extent with the ensemble in the filter section of Europa. But this is interesting. Or very kind of geeky. There's a synthesizer called Resonance, and this is very similar to what they do. Unfortunately, again, I feel like if I was going to try and build a guitar from this, that it probably would be a lot harder than it would be doing it either with Resonance or just really getting close enough using the carpless in Europa. And so my biggest frustration with this, and it's sort of a personal thing, other people will be like, and that's okay, that's all right. And I know this is free and it's just the engine, and maybe that's a precursor to there being a more complete instrument, but I like things like Europa because I can start and complete everything there. I'll then add other effects, don't get me wrong, but I'm not building my sound in 37 different places. I'm building it in one place, whereas this is asking me to be building it in 2, 3, 4, 5 different places at once. And for some people, that's what they really dig. I kind of don't dig that, which is why I like big, powerful synths with everything going on. But the core sound is pretty cool. And these, we will turn this off now. We've probably had enough of that. Got quite a nice little kick drum generator inside it. I like the second circuit a bit better myself. Sounds a bit more like a real kick drum, but it works quite nicely. Does quite cool snare drums. This I really like. Actually, if we pull it back with, pull this back in. And we can get some quite Kraftwerkian sorts of things happening. So it's cool in that sense. Filter is weird. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's designed to do something, sometimes it doesn't. I don't get why some instruments or devices are made this way without it being a lot clearer. The answer I would probably get is, oh, well, that's how the Eurorack does it. Okay, maybe that makes sense in that environment, but for somebody who just grabs it, especially without a manual, doesn't make much sense here. You seem to have this one mode here. Let's go back to it. Hopefully we're going to get what we expect. Okay, so you seem to have two modes. One which is sort of just a straight triggered mode, in which case the filter behaves kind of as expected. And then the envelope mode, which is sort of an on-off, and you can set the attack and release time, but there seems no real way to define how much filter depth there is. I get using the one mini envelope for everything because on at least a Eurorack you don't have a lot of space to be able to do it properly with 27 MSEGs and what have you. But this feels a little bit like, what are we doing? But we can do stuff like this, which gets a bit interesting. But seeing it's a gate or an organ style envelope, it just goes up until you let go of it. It isn't an ADSR. Yes, on the back you can fly in things, but I was a little surprised certain things are not exposed. Its mod wheels are not exposed. So there's no simple way to create just a vibrato on here, which I think, okay, that's maybe a little odd. Maybe if we assign it to generator A, it will work. Matter of fact, let's just try this, because I don't need to be proven wrong until I can prove that I'm right or wrong. So let's see what happens. Okay, sort of. Within the constraints of what it will do it, but it's not great in the sense that it's not going to be able to do any kind of sound that you want. It's got its limits. I guess everything does, so fair enough. One thing that I do like is that it's got a gate out. So if we bring in, and they encourage this, if we bring in, say, Sweeper, which is a beautiful filter, we can actually set it so that the envelope is triggered. So it's got a gate out, so when it's got a gate, it's going to echo that back out here to start the trigger. Ooh, look, triggered, triggered, triggered. And then we've got access to the loveliness that is the Europa style MSEG. In a full poly mode, yes, you can get that paraphonic work fine, but in a sort of full polyphonic separate notes kind of format, it can go a bit funny, in which case you can look at legato or retrigger. Which actually isn't sending another trigger back out the other side. Probably not what I would anticipate, boys and girls. But it's just not a synth that I think is going to get a lot of use as though it were a Jupiter 8 or something, or even a like a Juno 60 or something like that. But it's a shame because that's how I use synths. So to be balked, I think, is a bit frustrating. But interesting. But it's when you get up into the other things that you find there's a bit more interest to be had. If we take this and move it to... Actually, no, we'll leave it with generator A. Oh, output's a little loud from this, so you may, if you're doing anything other than boop, ba boop, ba boop, ba boop, you may need to pull back. Although speaking of, I think I may be a little quiet here. Let's just give us a bit more pedal. And then it becomes rather nice if we get ourselves a little bit more. A couple of different folders as to how it's going to handle. We might turn that one down. Ratio. We've got no sense of, well, what is what and where. So you kind of just have to work it out. Feedback seems to be the second one to itself. That seems to be what that's trying to say. That maybe is the amount of FM. It's a bit hard to tell. And then you can fly in a sub-oscillator or mix A-B between. Something is moving. We'll get that filter out of the way. tune. 24 is an odd number to have to be in tune, I gotta say. But everything here is kind of, you just got to work it out as you go. And I think they're relying on people wanting to just twist things randomly and have happy accidents. But the sound is capable of being really rather nice. Especially if we are moving some other generators, and because that varies from one to another, then that can be a bit... That's really rather cool. You know, you get the right situation, but it's a case of being able to say, how do I get there? Now, given time, you will get used to, okay, that's probably where that comes from. But in the short term, it's a little harder to say how you're going to get there. Oh, I think there's only 2 banks in here. I think that is oscillators form A, B, C, and D. So there are 4 forms in here. That's one wavetable, which can be played smoothly from one to another. Or switched. As opposed to being smooth. But it's definitely capable of sounding nice, that really cool sort of digital way. Chords, I don't get, so I'm not going to fuss too much on it. Speech synthesis. Species and phoneme. I was sure yesterday that this was actually talking to me, was saying words, but I don't get what that is, where that comes from. Again, it's just one of those things that I think, wow, what a shame. We could probably be getting something better than random noises out of this, especially it really did seem to be saying words to me yesterday. This is cool. As I said, this is similar to something you can already do in Parsec or in Europa. But it has a nice feel. It's the kind of thing that it's almost enough to have the instrument just to do this for the few times you want to do it. Just don't overdo it. I'd like to understand this better. That seems to relate to how smooth the noise is. But as to how we make it move in intelligent ways, that's going to take a little bit of time and trial. Obviously the whole record pop thing, which oddly never sound like records at all, at least not my records. But interesting. And these are the that's just hearing the thing that triggers the carpless. But the envelope and filter become totally, well, not part of it. So the only way to control release, what have you, is through, which if it's like a dulcimer or something like that, then generally all those strings ring out. I don't think they do any muting of strings, but there are some situations in which you would want to. But nonetheless, there's interesting stuff to be had, and in time, finding something that works for your piece, why not? These ones I found a little bit more frustrating because, and maybe I'm getting them wrong, maybe I was just getting it wrong yesterday, but there are bell sounds for sure. If we move that back to B. Oh, cool. Probably what I'd end up doing, because it feels like it's hard for me to control, is finding a raw tone and sampling it off. But then I might as well be making it in Europa. But nonetheless, it's all very interesting. And then we go back to those drums, which could be rather cool. I definitely see the sense in putting 3 or 4 of these into a combinator 2 and getting a nice little 4-part drum machine, or maybe a more part drum machine if you bring in some of the other things, so you can have little clangorous cowbelly type sounds and what have you, and it's going to be cool for that sort of thing. But that gives you a sense of how this thing sounds, what you can do with it, and what's probably going to be a little bit, well, of a pain to do as well. Let's pop in another one of these, just for fun. Sweeper, yep, we will go with the old phaserator. Let's just watch our levels. Let's watch our levels a little more than that. Not an interesting sound. The synth engine has a kind of a digital buzzy sound up top, but that's not entirely a terrible thing. Let's just get into, I guess, stronger filtering here. It has a charm of its own. You're probably just going to need to cobble together the things that you want as you find something, but expect it to probably be a little bit more of a, oh, I'll stumble into something and not necessarily know how to put it back together again afterwards. Not because it doesn't have a logic, it's just you got to take your time to understand its logic, and lack of a manual doesn't help. Maybe if you're dedicated enough, you find the donor device, Euro rack device, and go find its manual, and maybe that gives you enough to be going forward with. Or maybe you do just want that whole kind of random thing. I remember back in the 90s reading about some guy who was acting like he was the cleverest person ever because he'd gone and put black tape over all the labeling on his synthesizer, so it was like, so I never know what I'm doing, man. Okay, good on you for that. It's probably not the way Steely Dan would do it, but you know, they weren't Steely Dan. So interesting device, probably pairs very well with this multi-trigger doohickey. Let's get that running again. Running. I said running. Oh, because it's off. I mean, this alone is kind of cool. You set up something that you like and then flip from one thing to another until you go, oh, that's cool. A kingdom for a compressor. And I think that's probably the heart of what people have expected from it. Both of these are actually free, so you can go to the not Propeller Heads, but the Reason store and purchase them for free. Download them, pop them into your system, have a bit of a play. Both cases, you've kind of got to work out what they do and how they do it. But for a price, if you like to tinker around like this, spend hours sitting there going through bleeps and bloops until you go, oh, that one's exciting, then you'll probably get, well, hours of fun for you, not for the family, out of this. If you're looking for something that's going to be like a Europa, only with a unique or a more unique or a different set of oscillators, that's where it starts to get a little bit more frustrating, because honestly, Reason, while I totally adore it, it is not the same level of modularity that you can kind of build your synth from scratch in quite the same way as you can in other environments, assuming we were looking to say, oh, I can hear a beautiful violin here, and now I'm going to build this up into a violin section that plays, not just kind of clunks, but actually plays, which I can do in Europa. But obviously, once you try to wire things together, you lose that sense of consistency, which you have with a poly synth. I hope you found it at least a little bit interesting. If I say you felt like there was some value, put a like, subscribe, go off to Bandcamp and purchase one of my albums, $5. It's the only way I get value back for doing this. Otherwise, you have a great day.